Hello, this is Angela with Lab19. For Lab19, the objective is to demonstrate vSphere high availability functionality. So for the first task, we're going to be going over how to create a cluster enabled for vSphere HA. So I'm going to create a new cluster by right-clicking on the training center and then new cluster, and I'm going to name a node cluster demo. I checked off the vSphere HA and I changed the policy from host failures to percentage of cluster resources reserved as failover spare capacity, and then hit OK. So after it's created, we're going to go ahead and delete that cluster that we just created. So it's the node cluster demo. That's just a right click and delete. For task 2, we're going to configure the host environment to support VMware HA, and we're going to do it for ESXi2 host. So that's under Manage, Storage Adapters. I click the plus sign to add a new software iSCSI adapter. And then we're going to scroll down, and it's here, VMHBA33. And then if we look at the properties, we're going to see that the status shows as enabled, and then the targets, we're just going to add an IP, and that's going to be 172.16.1.99, and then hit OK. So let's go ahead and rescan too. Okay, so it's listed here now, and then if we go over to paths, we can see that there's two LUNs listed and they're both active. Now I'm going to create a new VM kernel port for vMotion traffic on ESXi1 host. So that was under Manage, Networking, and under Virtual Switches, I clicked on Add Networking. So it's going to be a VM kernel network adapter, and hit Next. And we're going to choose New Standard Switch, hit Next. And then here we're going to assign adapter, so we're going to add one. And we're going to select VMNIC2, hit OK, and then hit Next. And then we're going to label it vMotion. And it's pretty case sensitive. We're going to leave it as none default, and we're going to mark off vMotion traffic and management traffic. Next. And then it's going to have a statically assigned address. So 172.16.20.51, and subnet mask is okay, and then we're going to hit finish. And we're going to do the same things for ESXi2 hosts, except for the IP will be .52 at the end instead of 51. Okay, so that was added for ESXi2 host. For task 3, we're going to drag and drop host 1 and host 2 into the lab cluster. So that's just a click and drag over. And click and drag over. So now we see that they're both listed under the lab cluster. And then for the lab cluster, we're going to turn on vSphere HA. So that's under Manage Settings, vSphere HA. We're going to edit. And we're going to tick off Turn on vSphere HA. And then under emission control, we're going to define failover capacity by reserving percentage of the cluster resources. And they're going to be both 25% memory and 25% CPU here. And then we're also going to turn on the data store for heartbeat for both the NFS Vol 1 and iSCSI LUN 0. And then hit OK. So I powered on student VM1 and student VM2, and now I'm under the lab cluster, and we're going to monitor the vSphere HA. So you can see that for the master host is ESXi1, and it shows that there's 2 virtual machines that are detected. And then let's click on heartbeat, and for heartbeat, it lists 2 data stores. And then for configuration issues, we see that there's nothing listed. Yep. So for task 4, we're going to test the VMware HA functionality, and I am going to be migrating the student VM01. And here we're going to just change the compute resource only, and I'm going to move it over to ESXi2 host, and I'm going to leave the VM network the same, and this is the same default recommended, and we're going to hit finish. So here, if I go over to ESXi2 host under related objects and virtual machines, we can see that the student VM01 virtual machine has successfully migrated over to this host, and we are going to shut down this host. So that's just a right click, power, and shut down. Okay, now we see that the ESXi2 host has successfully shut down. We can tell by this red symbol here. And now we're gonna check and see if ESXi1 has the VM moved over. Refresh the pane, and here it is. Student VM1 successfully migrated itself over to the live host. For task 5, we're gonna view the vSphere HA resource usage. So we're gonna look at that for the lab cluster, and that's under monitor, resource reservation. So for the CPU, we see that the total reservation capacity is 5.90 gigahertz, and then total used reservations 1.48 gigahertz, and then available is 4.43 gigahertz. Now if we go over to memory, you can see that the total reservation capacity is 7.65 gigs, used is 1.97 gigs, and available is 5.68 gigs. And then under storage, we can see that the total capacity is 38.56 gigabytes, used is 5.67 gigs, and available is 32.89 gigs. And that's it.